the thumbnail of the video and the title presented like this. Is Caitlin Clark the greatest of all time in college basketball? Clearly using Caitlin Clark's name to drive it, knowing that Caitlin Clark is the biggest needle mover. Not only is Caitlin Clark not even really on their list, she got removed from the list.
ESPN has once again shown blatant disrespect toward Caitlin Clark while shamelessly pushing their biased narratives. Just when it seemed they couldn't sink any lower, they completely left Clark off their list of the top 5 greatest women's college basketball players of all time. The only argument against Clark is that she hasn't won
How can you be a top 5 player if you have not won a title?
You believe Larry Bird is an all-time great college player?
Yes.
Okay, well, he didn't win it, though.
They do leave Caitlin Clark out for the simple reason of not having a championship ring.
What about getting Iowa to the championship in back-to-back? Is that not a credit?
Same network that ranks male players as legends regardless of their title count suddenly decides that championships are the only thing that matters when it comes to Caitlin Clark. The hypocrisy is glaring, and we're not falling for it. Clark has shattered records, elevated the women's game to new heights, and become a cultural icon. Yet ESPN conveniently moves the goalposts to justify leaving her out. In this video, we break down exactly
Clark took Iowa to back-to-back.
ESPN's bias was on full display when they conveniently left Caitlin Clark off their all-time top 5 list for women's college basketball, citing her lack of a championship ring. But here's the issue. This so-called rule has never applied to any other players in their rankings. They've honored countless male and female players who never won a title. Yet suddenly, when it comes to Caitlin Clark, championships...
But I do find it interesting that they do tout off all her accomplishments, records that have not been broken by anybody else, and they still cannot consider her in the top 5 in this category.
Take Oscar Robertson and Pete Maravich, 2 of the most celebrated college players in history. Neither ever won a national championship, yet ESPN had no issue ranking them among the greatest of all time. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark didn't just break records.
I just don't understand how you can see someone doing more with less in some aspects, but in this one, you can't see it, you can't give them credit.
The hypocrisy is staggering. If championships were the ultimate requirement, then why was Larry Bird, another college basketball icon without a title, ranked so highly on their lists? The truth is obvious. ESPN is holding Caitlin Clark to an entirely different standard. Clark is the biggest name in women's basketball, and ESPN baited viewers into thinking she would be honored alongside the greats, only to completely erase her from the list during the discussion. This wasn't just a debate. It was a calculated move to cash in on her popularity while refusing to acknowledge her impact. ESPN is happy to exploit Clark's success for views, but when it's time to give her the respect she's earned, they suddenly change the criteria. Even their own analysts admitted on air that leaving Clark off the list felt wrong, acknowledging that she has dominated women's basketball in an unprecedented way. As one analyst put it, "I love Caitlin. I love how she's transcended the game. I'm not going to walk away from that." But in our opening, we asked, what makes a top 5 player? Is winning the only thing? The only strike against Caitlin Clark is that she has not won a national championship, and that is the only thing you can hold against her. The way she dominated the record books at Iowa is something...
Clark is being used as like a ploy. You know, they got to put Caitlin Clark's name in the title. They got to make sure, you think you're watching something about Caitlin Clark, and then the rug is kind of pulled out when it's actually like, nah, she's not even in the top 5.
Yet instead of standing by the truth, they clung to their tired argument, one that conveniently ignores how other great players without rings have been treated. ESPN is blatantly shifting the goalposts to downplay Caitlin Clark's greatness. They refuse to recognize her influence, even though she has done more for women's basketball than anyone in recent memory. Clark has elevated the sport, drawn record-breaking crowds, and inspired a new generation of players. Yet
if that's your number one criterion, if you don't win a championship, you can't be on any list, fine. She made the point that Caitlin has exploded the game bigger than anybody else. That's part of the significance and I guess you could say the greatness.
While dominating at Iowa, she shattered records, elevated the entire game, and led a team with no championship pedigree to back-to-back national title appearances. That alone should place her in the top 5, if not at number 1. Yet ESPN conveniently ignored her unmatched individual stats. Clark is the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I history, men's or women's. She led the nation in scoring and assists multiple times, a feat almost unheard of at any level of basketball. She holds countless records for three-pointers, double-doubles, and 40-point games, all while facing constant double teams and defensive schemes designed solely to stop her. These aren't just impressive stats.
For somebody who went to a team like Iowa, who did not have championship experience, who did not have stars around her, and it is undeniable that there is one player that brought Iowa to the championship that raised everybody else up around her, and her name is Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark holds the all-time scoring record in both men's and women's college basketball, a feat that alone cements her as one of the greatest players ever. But her impact goes far beyond scoring. She was also a dominant playmaker, consistently, leading in assists and elevating the performance of everyone around her. Clark's court vision, basketball IQ, and ability to create opportunities for her teammates made her the complete package, a rare combination of scorer and facilitator. Simply put, she didn't just rack up points. She made her entire team better. Her ability to control the pace of the game, draw defense...
Ranking players based on having a ring, a bit of an unfair way just to rank a player's potential.
Her accolades speak for themselves. She's a 2-time AP Player of the Year, a 3-time All-American, a 2-time Naismith Player of the Year, and a 2-time Wooden Award winner. In nearly every category that defines an all-time great, Clark ranks near the top. Now, let's compare her to the players ESPN ranked above her. Were they legendary in their own right? Absolutely. But did any of them revolutionize the sport the way Clark did? Clark's deep three-pointers, clutch performances, and ability to command the spotlight brought unprecedented attention to women's basketball. She didn't just succeed, she changed the conversation, driving record TV ratings, sold-out arenas, and a surge in national interest. Clark's impact on and off the court is unmatched, making ESPN's decision to leave her off the list even more